Welcome to Simple English Connect, a place where you can learn and improve your English in an easy and fun way. Hello, my wonderful listeners. I'm your host, Anna, and I'm so happy to be here with you today. How are you doing? I hope you're feeling good and ready to learn something new and helpful. Today, we're going to talk about something really important for everyone learning English, especially when you're having conversations. We're going to talk about what to say when you don't understand something. It happens to everyone. Sometimes the speaker is too fast, sometimes they use a word you don't know, or maybe the sentence structure is a little confusing. It's totally normal. But sometimes, when you don't understand, you might feel a little shy or nervous to ask for help. You might think, oh, maybe I should just pretend I understand, or I don't want to sound like I'm not good at English. But guess what? Native speakers don't understand everything all the time either. We often need to ask for clarification, and asking for clarification is a super important part of communication. It shows you are listening, and it helps the conversation continue smoothly. Knowing how to politely say, "I don't understand," is a skill that will make you feel much more confident when you're speaking English. It will help you learn faster and connect better with people. So let's learn some easy and natural ways to do this, just like native speakers do. Let's dive in. Okay, imagine you are talking to someone and they say something you don't quite catch. Maybe they spoke too fast, or maybe there was some noise. You didn't hear them clearly. What can you say? Here are some simple phrases you can use. You can say, "Sorry, I didn't catch that." This means you didn't hear the words clearly. You can also say, "Could you repeat that, please?" This is a very polite way to ask them to say it again. Or you can simply say, "Pardon?" This is a short and common way to ask someone to repeat themselves. You can also say, "Pardon me?" It's usually used when you didn't hear something. Another informal option is, "Come again?" This is more casual, maybe with friends. For example, your friend says, "Let's meet at 7 p.m. outside the cinema," and you didn't hear the time clearly. You can say, "Come again?" Your friend will then repeat, "At 7 p.m. What if you heard the words, but you don't understand the meaning of a specific word or phrase? This happens a lot when you're learning a new language. Don't worry, it's a great opportunity to learn something new. Here's what you can say. If someone uses a word you don't know, you can ask, "What does word mean?" For example, your friend says, "The weather is really peculiar today." And you think, "Peculiar? What is peculiar?" You can ask, "Sorry, what does peculiar mean?" Your friend will then explain, "Peculiar means strange or unusual." If they use a phrase or an idiom, you can ask, "What does that phrase mean?" Or, "What does that idiom mean?" For example, your colleague says, "That task is a piece of cake." And you think, "Piece of cake? Like dessert?" You can ask, "What does that phrase, 'a piece of cake,' mean?" Your colleague will then smile and say, "It means it's very easy." You can also ask for a definition in a simpler way. Could you explain what word phrase means? This is polite and helpful. Sometimes you understand all the words, but the whole sentence or idea is confusing. Maybe the grammar is different from what you expect, or the way they put the ideas together is new to you. Here are some ways to ask for clarification. You can say, "I'm not sure I understand." This is a good general phrase when you're unsure about the meaning of a sentence or an idea. You can also say, "Could you explain that in a different way?" This asks the person to rephrase what they said, maybe using simpler words or a different sentence structure. You can ask, "Could you say that again, please?" Even if you heard the words, asking them to repeat might give you more time to process and understand. Sometimes it helps to check if you understood correctly by repeating what you think they said and asking for confirmation. For example, your teacher explains a task and says, "So you need to write a short summary of the article, focusing on the main arguments presented by the author. And you think, summary? Main arguments? You want to check if you need to write about the whole article or just the key points. You can say, so if I understand correctly, you mean I should write about the most important ideas in the article? Is that right? Your teacher will then confirm, yes, exactly, just the main points. This technique is great because it shows you were listening and it helps you make sure you are on the same page. You can also ask for an example. Examples make things much clearer. You can say, could you give me an example? For example, your friend talks about a new app and says, it's really intuitive, and you're not quite sure what intuitive means in this context. You can ask, could you give me an example of how it's intuitive? Your friend might then say, sure, for example, you just tap the screen once to save. You don't need to go through 3 different menus. It's very easy to figure out how to use it. Asking for an example is a very effective way to understand abstract ideas or new concepts. Sometimes the situation is informal, and you just need a quick way to show you didn't understand. Casual phrases include, what? Be careful with your tone here. It can sound a bit direct or even rude if not said gently. Huh? Very informal, usually only with close friends. Sorry? Can mean I didn't hear you or I didn't understand you, depending on the context and tone. Wait, what? Shows a bit of surprise or confusion. Use these casual phrases with people you know well and in informal settings. In more formal situations, it's better to use phrases like, could you repeat that, please? Or, I'm sorry, I didn't understand. Remember that your tone of voice and body language are also important. A confused look, tilting your head slightly, or using a questioning tone can help show that you didn't understand before you even say anything. And a friendly, polite tone when asking for clarification is always best. So we've talked about phrases for different situations. When you didn't hear, when you don't know a word, when you don't understand the meaning, and when you need clarification or an example. Now, let's talk about the importance of actually using these phrases. It can feel difficult to admit you don't understand. Maybe you're afraid of slowing down the conversation or feeling embarrassed. But honestly, everyone who is learning a language has moments where they don't understand. It's part of the process. And people are usually happy to help you. When you ask for clarification, you are showing that you are actively listening and engaged in the conversation. This is a positive thing. Think about it this way. If you pretend to understand and just nod along, you might miss important information, and the conversation could become even more confusing later. It's much better to pause for a moment and ask for help. Embracing mistakes is key here. Maybe you'll use the wrong phrase for the situation, or maybe your pronunciation isn't perfect when you ask. That's okay. The most important thing is that you are trying to communicate and to understand. Every time you ask for clarification, you are practicing not just the phrase for not understanding, but also your speaking and listening skills. You are training your brain to be comfortable in English conversations, even when things are challenging. The more you practice asking, the easier it will become. And you'll also learn how people respond when you ask these questions, which is more great practice. So challenge yourself today. The next time you are listening to English, whether it's a podcast, a video, or a conversation, and you don't understand something, try using one of these phrases. Don't just let the moment pass. Pause and ask. Let's do a quick practice exercise together. I will say something, and I want you to practice responding as if you didn't understand. Imagine you're talking to me, Anna. Okay, here's the first one. Imagine I say, hey, did you see that article about the new eco-friendly initiative? Now imagine you didn't hear the word initiative clearly. How would you ask me to repeat that specific word, or maybe the whole sentence? You could say, sorry, I didn't catch the last part. The eco-friendly what? Or you could say, Could you repeat that last sentence, please? All right, let's try another one. Imagine I say, I'm feeling a bit under the weather today. And you understand the words, but you're not sure what under the weather means. How would you ask me to explain that phrase? You could say, what does under the weather mean? Or you could say, could you explain that phrase, under the weather? See? It's not so difficult. The key is to just open your mouth and say something. Even a simple, sorry with a questioning look is better than staying silent and being confused. Now, let's think about typical difficulties you might face when you don't understand and how to overcome them. One common difficulty is feeling too shy to interrupt. You might feel like you are being rude by stopping the flow of the conversation. But remember, it's much better to ask for clarification than to misunderstand completely. You can interrupt politely. Phrases like, excuse me before asking your question can help with this. Another difficulty is not knowing what exactly you didn't understand. Was it a word, the whole sentence, the main idea? Don't worry if you can't pinpoint the exact problem immediately. You can start with a general phrase like, I'm not sure I understand, and then try to ask more specific questions if you can. For example, you could say, I'm not sure I understand. Could you say that part again? Sometimes the other person might get frustrated if you don't understand. This doesn't happen often, and it's usually not because you asked for clarification. It might be because they are in a hurry or they are not a good communicator. Don't take it personally. Just politely repeat your request or try a different phrase. If the conversation is too difficult, it's okay to politely end it and find another opportunity to practice. Remember, the goal is not perfection, but communication and learning. Every time you encounter something you don't understand and you ask for clarification, you are making progress. You are actively participating in your learning journey. You are being brave. So let's quickly review the key ideas from today's episode. We learned different phrases to use when you don't understand in English. If you didn't hear, you can say, sorry, I didn't catch that. Or, could you repeat that, please? If you don't understand a word or phrase, you can ask, what does word mean? Or, could you explain what word phrase means? If you don't understand the whole idea, you can say, I'm not sure I understand. Or, could you explain that in a different way? You can also check your understanding by saying, so if I understand correctly, you mean, is that right? And don't be afraid to ask for an example. Could you give me an example? We also talked about using casual phrases like pardon or sorry in informal settings. Most importantly, we discussed that asking for clarification is a natural part of communication, and it's essential for learning. Don't be afraid of making mistakes or feeling shy. Every time you ask, you are practicing and improving. So, my dear listeners, I encourage you to start using these phrases today. Don't wait until your English is perfect. Use them right now. Find opportunities to listen to English and actively engage with it. If you don't understand, speak up. Thank you so much for joining me today on Simple English Connect. I really hope this episode helps you feel more confident in your English conversations. Remember, you are doing a great job, and every step you take brings you closer to your fluency goals. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to Simple English Connect so you don't miss our future episodes. Leaving a review or sharing this podcast with a friend who is also learning English would be wonderful. It helps more people find us. Join me next time on Simple English Connect, where we'll be talking about how to keep conversations going. What to say after, how are you? Keep practicing, keep speaking, and remember, you are doing great. See you next time.